everyone, it's Hailey, and today I'm going to be talking about some books that I think live up to the hype. So this video is kind of the opposite of a video that I did, I think it was this past April, but it was talking about books that you have probably never heard of, and those were some books that I was recommending that I feel like are underrated, underhyped. Now, today we're going to be talking about some books that you almost definitely have heard of if you have been in the bookternet sphere for a while or you just really like reading. You've probably seen these around. They aren't anything groundbreaking that you've never heard of, but they are very, very hyped up. There are a lot of really hyped up books out there and it can get super overwhelming. So this list today are a bunch of hyped up books that I think live up to their hype or in some cases maybe exceed it. This is kind of a difficult video to do because what I see around and feel like is really, really hyped up might not be what you see around, but I feel like these are a lot of books that you definitely at least have heard of. Now, the exact opposite of this video would be overhyped books, which I have done once in the past. I will do another one at some point. I'm kind of afraid to just because like I just know the mental state that I'm in right now and like negative comments get to me, so I'm like, I feel like that would not be a video to do now, but soon I will do it for you guys. Now let's just get into this list of hyped books that I think they deserve that hype. First is, of course, The Diviners by Libba. This book has been hyped up since I feel like since it first came out. I feel like when it first came out, actually, it was one of those books that everyone seemed to own, but I hadn't really heard of anyone actually reading it. And then as the sequels started to come out, because it took forever for the sequel to come out, like the second book, I feel like it was like 4 years in between this book and then the second book. But when the sequels started to come out, I started to hear more about it and more of the hype and more of people reading it. And oh my gosh, it deserves all the hype in the world. This is a book that people have been dying for Netflix to pick up and do a TV show of, or someone to pick it up and do a TV show of, and I totally agree with that because it would be amazing. Like 1920s ghost story made into this amazing TV show. I feel like I'd be terrified watching it, honestly. Like I don't know if I'd actually be able to watch it, but I would definitely try. I think that the writing of this is so beautiful and the characters are amazing, and there's a reason that you hear about this book all the time, especially around October. I feel like it's just, it comes out of hiding and it's like, hello. But now the series is actually over, so the last book came out. I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet when I am filming this. I may have finished it by the time this video goes live, but if you have been waiting, the whole series is out now, so now you can binge all 4 giant books of it, and you will love it, I hope. Next is Scythe by Neal Shusterman. I feel like this is a book that kind of has a similar trajectory as The Diviners, because the first book came out and I actually read an arc of it and I liked it a lot, but then once the sequel came out, this book was everywhere. Everyone was going wild for Thunderhead when the sequel came out, and it's totally understandable because while this first book is really good, I feel like Thunderhead completely builds on it. Now, the last book I didn't love as much as the others. However, I think the series as a whole is so fascinating, really unique. So it's a dystopian that is, well, kind of, it's more of a utopian, but they're basically the same thing. I know that they're different and they're the exact opposite. My point is you can't really have a true utopia because it ends up being a dystopia. Okay, I understand the difference between the two. But in this one, there's no disease. No one dies a natural death anymore. There are these scythes, which are people who are appointed to keep the population down, and they go around killing people, and you follow 2 scythes apprentices, so they are training to be scythes over the course of this series. It's like wild, it blows my mind, but it is totally worth all of the hype surrounding it. Like people keep on talking about it because it just like takes you for a wild ride and is worth all of it. Next is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. I think that this one started to get really hyped up once Paperback Dreams read it and then was raving about it, and then Hannah and Zoe read it, and then I decided to read it because they also loved it. So I wasn't so sure if I would enjoy this one as much as everyone else did, but I really did. I love the fact that it deals with a topic that I think should be talked about way more in YA fiction, which is the fact that not everyone is going to have the same career path. You don't have to go to school after going to high school. You don't have to do this. You can do whatever you want and still be successful. And I love that that topic is delved further into in this story. It's just super powerful, definitely very different than other contemporaries that I've read, but I really enjoyed it. Next is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I think this is one of the most hyped up sci-fis in recent memory. Obviously Illuminae and other books like that, but I feel like of the more recent releases, this has been the one that I've heard about the most, and I also really loved this one when it first came out, so I still need to read the sequel. Oh my goodness, I really hope I can get to it soon, but it is just a lot of fun. It's a really interesting sci-fi. It's like flight school, and you follow the main character, and her father has been disgraced because he fled from everyone when they were going to battle, and because of that she has been discriminated against, and she's trying to be a pilot. She has this dream, but she's facing a ton of obstacles on her way, and she finds this spaceship, and it's just like this ragtag team sort of thing going on. It's just super enjoyable. There's lots of witty banter, and I really just can't wait to read the sequel, but I think this definitely lives up to its sci-fi hype. It's a very cool technical sci-fi that I had a lot of fun reading. I do want to mention there are a lot more books that are really hyped up that I could talk about, like Illuminae. I feel like also lives up to the hype, but I wanted to keep this list a little bit shorter, so if you would like a part 2, then let me know and I can do that for you. Next is a recent read for me actually, and I feel like it's pretty hyped up. Like, I think last year when it came out I saw a lot of people really hyping it up, and this year I haven't seen that much. Like, it's kind of faded out, but I still think it's worth mentioning, and that is The House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. This is a horror thriller spin on 12 Dancing Princesses retelling. I had no clue what to expect going into this, but what I got was a deliciously atmospheric and dark retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, and I couldn't read it at night because it creeped me right out. I am a chicken, but it definitely like terrified me, but it was a lot of fun to read at the same time because there were lots of twists and turns, and you have kind of like, you don't know what's what and what's real, and it just makes your head spin, and it's just so much fun to read because of that. So definitely a very unique and wild ride. Next is Warcross by Marie Lu. This actually I'm hoping will get even more hype because I feel like it does deserve it. I didn't like the sequel as much, but I did still really enjoy this first book, but why I'm hoping it will get more hype is because it's been optioned for a movie, I believe. I think it was a movie. I'm not sure if it was TV or movie, but I think it was a movie, and I think it will be a fabulous adaptation. But it's just such an interesting world because it's our world, but it's in the future, and there's this virtual reality game that everyone is always playing. So there's a competition in here with that video game, and it's just very well written, completely immerses you in that world of that video game, and I think that's why people have hyped this book up so much, is because it has such a fascinating and unique concept and a very interesting world to go with it. Next is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I feel like this book is more hyped up outside of BookTube and the Bookternet. I feel like I would hear about it a lot when I was working in a bookstore. All of my coworkers were like, oh, it's amazing, like you're gonna love it, and I was like, there's absolutely no way I'm going to enjoy this one as much as everyone says that I'm going to. So it took me a really long time to read it because I was so skeptical, but wow, did it blow me away. Like, it completely exceeded all the hype. I love this book so much. It's one of my favorite books of all time. Oh my goodness. So it's a World War II historical fiction set in Nazi-occupied France, and you follow two sisters and their experiences throughout the war, and it's just like, it's so hard to read. It's so emotional. They were supposed to do a movie, and I think it was supposed to come out in 2019. I haven't seen any more on that, so I don't really think that's happening. I don't even know if I'd actually be able to watch a movie of it. Like, I would try, but I feel like it would be way too much because, oh, every time I think of this book, it just, I remember I listened to the audiobook and I was cooking something, I can't tell you what, but I was cooking and I was listening to the audiobook and just sobbing at the end. It just took my heart and it stomped on it, and it will make you feel things, but that's why people talk about it so much, is because it's powerful and poignant and will stay with you forever. Next is a super hyped up book, and that is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and I didn't enjoy that one as much, but Daisy Jones came out, and this one also went wild with the hype, and I completely understand why. I feel like this is entirely worth it. I think this is one that might be a little bit more controversial because I know a lot of people didn't really click with this one. They didn't click with the format because it's all about this band, and it's Daisy Jones. She is trying to make it as a musician, and then she ends up teaming up with the Six, and they form this band in the 1960s or 70s. I can't remember, but it follows them on tour and all the things that come with that. But it's told in an interview style format, and I personally think that just added to everything for me, but I do get why people might not click with it. However, this story is just packed with all the angst and all the emotion, and it's another one that will stay with you for a while. Like, I read it twice in a very short period of time because I kept on thinking about these characters. They felt so real to me. Like, I felt like I was actually watching a documentary about these characters, and it was a wild experience. Speaking of another super hyped up book, next is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This got hype leading up to its coming out, and then when it came out, and the hype has never died down, and I'm glad that it hasn't because it is such a cute adult romance. It follows the first son of the President of the United States who falls in love. It's like a hate to love. I was gonna say enemies to lovers or hate to love. I wasn't sure which one I was going with there, but we'll go with hate to love. So it's a hate to love romance between the first son of the President of the United States and the Henry Prince of Wales. I didn't know where I was going with that, but Henry Prince of Wales. So you have the American and the British royal and them having this adorable romance, and there's a lot of important topics covered in here as well. So it's a multifaceted story that once again has those characters that will just get you every time. Like, there's certain scenes that I'll never forget, like the turkey scene. It's just one of those books. Next is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. This is another one of probably the most hyped books on this list, which just so happened to be on the bottom of my pile because they're the ones that I grabbed first, but this deserves every little bit of hype and even more. It's such a powerful and important story, and if you haven't read it by now, you really should. You should also watch the movie. I think the movie was also fantastically done. I've seen it a couple of times now, but it's talking about the issues of police brutality as the main character Star is with her friend who is unarmed and murdered at the hands of a police officer. So it's definitely a very difficult read, but one that I think is completely necessary and so well done, and like I said, deserves every bit of hype that it gets. Next is a recently hyped up book, and that is Felix Ever After by Casing Calendar. This totally deserves all its hype because it is so well written and just very well done. It follows our main character who is a trans boy, and he's experiencing some transphobic bullying as pictures of him before his transition and his dead name has been released to his school. So as he's trying to figure out his own identity and he's starting to form a relationship as well and navigate romance, he is dealing with this terrible person who is bullying him. I think this deals with being a teenager really well. It perfectly encapsulates the confusion that's going on, and especially with him trying to discover his gender identity and also kind of being stuck in this love triangle that he wasn't expecting. This hit so many emotional levels and was just so beautifully written that I immediately went out and bought more of what the author has written because I feel like anything else that they have written I will really enjoy. Next is Prince Charming by Rachel Hawkins. I have definitely been guilty of hyping this up. Honestly, I feel like Her Royal Highness kind of deserves the hype a little bit more. I feel like they're pretty equally hyped though, but these are stories about Americans meeting royals and romance that ensues there. So here we have the main character's sister is getting married to the Prince of Scotland, and she ends up starting a relationship with this elite dude who is in Scotland, and she goes to Scotland actually, so that's where the story is set. In Her Royal Highness, however, it is an American ends up rooming with the Princess of Scotland, and they start this romance together, and it is so cute, and like I just love it. So these definitely are a lot of fun and deserve the hype. Next is Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. This is another book where I feel like if you haven't seen the movie yet, you really need to, because it is also super well done. I've seen that one a few times as well. It's one of my favorite adaptations, but I love Simon. I love his story, and all the characters, like the supporting cast of characters, is also fabulously done. So Simon is being blackmailed into revealing his sexuality. He's gay, but he hasn't come out yet, and someone discovers that he has been emailing this guy and flirting with him, and they threaten to reveal that to the entire school. So definitely an instance of homophobia once again here, as the other one had transphobia. So be wary of that when going into these books, but it's just a story about discovering your identity and coming to accept that and embrace it. And I love it so much. I feel like it means a lot to a lot of people, and it's super important. And finally is a book that I have definitely been a guilty party in hyping up, and that is Lovely Wart by Julie Berry. This is just so good, and I'm glad it's finally getting a lot of hype, and I feel like it should get even more. Like, I was not the OG person to hype this. I was seeing it around different places, but I feel like everyone should read it and hype it up. If you like historical fiction, then you should for sure read this one. But it is a World War I historical fiction that is narrated by the gods. So you have Aphrodite, Apollo, Hades even gets in there, just all these different gods are chiming in and telling these two love stories set during World War I, and it's so heartbreaking but so powerful. And like, I love this book so much, and I feel like it should just get all the hype in the world. So that's all for this video today. Like I said, I definitely could do another one, so if you would be interested in that, please do let me know. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!